Hello everyone, it's Whiskey11 and welcome back to the Gaming Lounge. In this video we're going to talk about DCS World's biggest bully when it comes to the surface-to-air missile threats. That's the SA-10, and I say biggest bully, but I really kind of mean it sarcastically because I've made a bit of a habit of murdering these things just out of point, just to prove the point. A lot of people get really tied up, like the SA-10 is this really nebulous and hard to kill SAM site, but in reality, it has limitations just like every other SAM site in the game does. There is no perfect SAM site. They have strengths and weaknesses, but the biggest thing about the SA-10 is you can't just lob a harm at it effectively. I've seen people say that apparently if you're within 10 miles and on the deck, you can shoot a harm at it and it will make it through all of the missiles. Frankly, that's a lot of work and very, very low probability of success. So what I've done is I've set up a mission here with a SA-10. In this case, it's actually going to be the SA-10B from the High Digit SAM mod, which is a higher poly count version of basically the same SA-10 that we have in game. They changed the tracking to be the more accurate version of the tracking, so this does track via missile. You don't get launch warnings when it shoots at you. Which is fine. We don't need to know that information because we'll be able to see it. And I'll show you how I kill these SA-10s. Now, you can kill it other ways. I'm not saying it's impossible to get a harm through. I'm not saying it's impossible to do tall trucking with F-18s or F-14s to run the thing out of missiles. I'm just saying this is one way in which you can take out the SA-10, especially if you're flying by yourself. In this case, I'm using the F-16. It is the premier DEED platform in the game right now. I suppose DEED will probably change with the F-15E coming out later, but for right now, we're going to use the F-16. So I've chosen a real-world SA-10 site, which is currently located north of Sukhumi Babashura in what is contested territory in Georgia, and it's a real-world site. I will throw the Google Earth image up here for you, as well as the coordinates down in the description, so you can go look at it on Google Earth yourself if you would like. It probably has something more modern than an SA-10B, but we're not going to worry about that part for the purposes of this video. So effective DEED, it's going to require you to have an understanding of how SAM sites work. So especially with the SA-10, there's going to be a couple of different radars that we're worried about. You have two search radars. You have the Big Bird and the Clamshell. And then you have the track radar, which is the flap lid. Now, the flap lid is really what I consider to be the most important radar in this mix, because if it can't lock onto you, it can't shoot at you. Some people will say getting rid of all of the search radars will make the biggest difference because it degrades the performance of the site. It makes it very difficult because the flap lid doesn't have a wide field of view like the Big Bird and the Clamshell do. The other part of knowing your SAM site is knowing its limitations, and the SA-10 has a blind spot below 50 feet. I would say AGL, but it's really above the... it's really the height of the mast for the Clamshell search radar. Below that, and especially with the truck-mounted version of the flap lid, it can't see lower than that. So 50 feet, it can't see anything. So I've gone and made this even more difficult by attacking directly from the ocean. So let's go ahead and let's watch that video. Alright, so this is going to take me a minute to get this set up, but while we're doing that, there's a couple things to remember. The F-16, like I said, is the premier DEED platform. There's no better aircraft, in my opinion, in the game to finding SAM sites. So I have a pair of CBU-105s. I've set their burst altitude to 1,000 feet. Went ahead and powered them on, because for whatever reason DCS World doesn't start you that way. We're going to start working our HTS pod on the Big Bird, and that's just going to kind of help us find the site. I've not given myself coordinates. The coordinates for that, the waypoint that I have is actually for Sukhumi itself. And so we got to find it. So we're going to get the HTS pod working on finding the location. We're going to turn our countermeasure system on and our jammer on. The jammer isn't going to make a huge difference, but it's going to make enough of a difference that's going to allow us to kind of play within the threat ring of the SA-10 before we actually get shot at. You can see him up here at about 20,000 feet. Got about 9,000 pounds of gas, 2 bags, 4 AIM-120s. So let's set up our HTS pod. I'm going to disable threats 6 through 11. Those are predominantly NATO radars in those, and search radars, which, yeah, we don't really care about. So, alright, so we're basically waiting for the solution to come down so that we can find it in the targeting pod. So let's see if we've got enough of an angle. Really, all I need is an angle. We know it's along the coast. That's about the only piece of intelligence that we have. Also, because this is a real-world static SA-10 site, I went ahead and left it on the MFD for the brief, so we can see it there on the MFD. We're going to keep looking around. Oh, I think I see something. Yeah, there we go. Alright. So the high-digit SAM mods doesn't have the FLIR versions of these. There's our track radar mounted on a truck. You can see the launchers there, which, of course, we're going to need. So I went ahead and power up my my laser designator, and the purpose of that is to get a more accurate range. Generally with these attacks, what I do is once I find the site, I'm going to set a mark point on it, and I want that mark point to be accurate, so I use the laser designator. Once I set that mark point down, I go ahead and set that mark point as my waypoint, and we're also going to start our descent down to 40 feet. In this case, ASL, I suppose. Technically ASL, but AGL, you know, what's the difference? Alright, so let's refine this a little bit. Let's get our mark point set up. Lasing and mark point set. Alright. Go ahead and turn the laser off because we don't need it. Set it as our steer point. Double check it. Perfect. So now what we can do is we're going to focus on descending. I turn my helmet mounted sight on because, you know, reasons why it's not starting up with the game load, but whatever. We're going to descend down to, again, 40 to 50 feet. The SA-10 in-game has a blind spot, 50 feet, at 50 feet basically above where the clamshell is mounted at. So in this case, because it's effectively sea level, we're just going to play at 40, 50 feet and do our ingress. So this is going to be a pop-up attack. As we go into this, we're going to stay 40, 50 feet until about 8 miles, in which case we're going to do a 25-degree pop-up. We're going to release our CBU-105s, and then we are going to egress as best as we possibly can. Alright, coming in. Here is 50 feet, leveling it off, setting the altitude autopilot so I don't have to think about this for a minute. And we're just going to refine our approach geometry as we come in with gentle banks, because we've got about 23 miles to go. Look at that beautiful jet. Man, we're even doing this with the ultimate level of disrespect with our lights on. Alright, so as we're coming in, we can see the, you know, the coastline's approaching fairly quickly, 20 miles. We're about Mach 0.8. We're going to step it up into Afterburner about 12 miles out. And that's just going to give us a little bit of extra speed so that when we come up over the top on this pop-up attack, that we will be able to get back down below that 50-foot mark before we get an SA-10 shot up our rear. So again, we're going to pop up, drop our ordnance, and then we are going to turn cold as fast as freaking possible and get back down to this 40-feet deck. Again, we've got the jammer on with the hopes that it'll help us out a little bit, but being as it's, you know, we're well within that threat ring of an SA-10. So 14 miles now. You can see our range counting down there at the bottom right of the screen below the flashing AL500. 13, 12. So 12, we went ahead and popped it into Afterburner. As we go up in this pop-up attack, again, we're going to pop up at about 8 miles. As we go up in this pop-up attack, you're going to see me do a point lock on the actual SAM site. This is an important step. If you don't do this, you can potentially miss your target. So there's the point track, popping up about 25 degrees. We're going to get to the in range. There's in range, weapons away, turn cold. dive back down for the deck. Now, again, we're not going to get a launch warning from this thing because if we are going to get a launch warning, I suppose it wouldn't matter. It's in our blind spot, but we're just going to pretend that we didn't get one, especially since we didn't get it once the RWR came back around and was unmasked. But back down below the deck, 40 feet, set our autopilot, and we're out. This thing saw us long enough to shoot at us. Yeah. So there's 2 rounds. It looks like it fired. 3, maybe 4. Yeah, look at the CB-105. Still doing good on altitude on our egress. And in comes the pain. Oh yeah, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I love CB-105 strikes. These are just perfect. And these are going to take out everything. That is the, well, and by everything I mean all of the important bits. We've gotten rid of all of the tells, so the launchers, and the track radar, so yeah, we left a search radar in place, but you know what? Nah, screw it. It'll be alright. Yeah, perfect. So let's look at this destruction. So the big bird is still there, but we can see a couple tells that look like they're alive, but they're burning, so that's good. And then we can see that the flaplet is dead. So now we can pop up, usually after these strikes, once we get a little bit of timeout on them. I don't always follow them in, but once we get a little bit of timeout, you'll see me kind of pop up and then do a BDA on them, a battle damage assessment with the targeting pod. But it's really not necessary in this case. Like I said, we left the Big Bird search radar and the clamshell search radars intact. That's okay. It'll take them a minute to replenish this site anyway if in real life, but all of the tells are dead and the radar, the track radar is dead, but that's the SA-10. Once you get to this comfort level with killing SA-10s, and again, we did this the hard way over the water, now imagine doing that with terrain masking. Once you get comfortable doing that, you can take out pretty much any SAM site in the game. Your scariest SAMs become things like SA-15s, SA-19s, even 3s and 6s are pretty scary because those short-range missiles give you so little time to react to them once they're shot at you. 15s and 6s are probably the 2 hardest ones for me to kill, but thankfully both, well, the 16 is easy enough to kill with a harm, but the 15 you can fly over and just drop bombs on it. Anyway, I hope you guys have found this video educational and helpful in your DCS Seed Deed journey. If you haven't already, like, comment, and subscribe. Ring the bell. You guys know the YouTube thing. Anyway, I'll catch you later. Have a good one.